All right, we're gonna get going, everybody.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Roll call, please.
Mr. Anise?
Present.
Mr. Bova? Mr. Brodsky?
Here.
Mr. Coyne?
Here.
Mr. D'Elia?
Here.
Mr. Ford?
Here.
Mr. Haskell?
Here.
Mr. Karam?
Here.
Mr. Miola? Mr. Santacroce?
Here.
And Ms. Sesney. Thank you.
Thank you. You have the July 15, 2024 draft minutes in your packet. Is there a motion to approve? Thank you, Donnie. Second, thanks, Bruce. Any deletions, corrections, additions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed?
And one abstain.
And one abstain. Thank you. Dan, are you going to take this?
Sure. Yep. The Mohawk Valley Water Authority has 4 reservoirs that contain earthen dams that are regulated by the New York State DEC due to their Class C hazard designation. Those are Southern Reservoirs 2, 4, 5, and Deerfield Reservoir number 6. Every 10 years, an updated engineering assessment is required by the DEC that involves a geotechnical, structural, and hydrologic evaluation of the dams. The last assessments and certifications were completed in 2014, and new certifications that the dams meet the New York State DEC dam safety regs are required by the end of 2024. So we advertised for professional services. We received 2 bids from Rambo, who was the low bidder at roughly $92,000, and CT Mail at $160,000. So the resolution we're looking for the board to consider tonight is approval of this contract, award of the contract.
Anybody have any questions on this?
Just, do we know the low bid? Do we know the people?
Rambo, yes, they've done a lot of work for us.
Okay, we're satisfied with their past experience?
They used to be called O'Brien and Gear.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, same company, same people, just they got bought out.
So
Any other questions or concerns?
I'll move.
As presented, Bruce?
As presented.
Second.
All over the place, seconds. Any further comments? All those in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Thank you.
Good presentation. Thank you.
Are you going to run us through these?
Pregnant Workers Fairness Act, the final rule went into effect on June 18th, 2024. Basically, this is something that was adopted by the EEOC on top of what pregnant workers already get through the ADA. This covers reasonable accommodations that wouldn't normally cover things that wouldn't normally be things that are covered by the ADA, because this isn't necessarily if the person is experiencing a pregnancy-related disability. It's like, if they need more frequent breaks, if they need to sit on a job where they require standing. Basically, it expands rights for pregnant workers for any sort of complications, pregnancy, childbirth, or related conditions, so that they can continue working and don't need to be taken out of work.
And in case anybody's wondering, I think we jumped to agenda item 7. Yes.
So I saw that, but is this one where is this one, Amy?
It's the last one
Of
under
all
the
these?
miscellaneous tab.
Oh, got it.
Yep.
Anybody have any questions on this one? Someone care to move for approval? Thanks, Rich.
Second.
Thank you, George. You have it, Vince? You got it?
Got it.
Any questions, comments, or concerns? All those in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Thank you. Oh, I see. I jumped you down to that one. So the procurement policy and procedures,
Yep. So procurement policy was last modified by the board 2021. The changes have been redlined. Hopefully that's how it appears in your copy as well. We just did some cleanups. A lot of this was really to, in some cases, remove references to the treasurer, since the treasurer is a board member and isn't intricately involved in the day-to-day paying of bills or transferring monies around, et cetera, et cetera. So we've sort of redesignated that the controller and or myself, me would do that. Shouldn't say myself. I hate when people say that.
I think that's the next policy. That's the investment one.
No, on mine, well, we also removed the treasurer from some of those as well. So we did that on both of them. But other than that, this is vastly unchanged from the last time the board approved it. Jim, is there anything on the procurement policy that you would want to add?
Cleanup of some confusing statements and just clearing up. It had like newspaper in there. Obviously, we advertise on not only in a newspaper but on different website or different multimedia sites. So
Trying to put some more modern language in there to reflect, changed procedures.
Any questions regarding this? Someone care to move approval? Thank you, Bruce. Second, thanks, Gene. Any further comments? All those in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Thank you. The investment guidelines?
That kind of falls under the same general description. Jim, is there anything on the investment guidelines?
no, we just cleaned up. I know it came before everyone a couple meetings ago, and we wanted to clean up and take the treasurer out because the treasurer really doesn't have the board treasurer doesn't have that function. So put it controller and or designee is generally what we've cleaned up. So you'll see chairman, executive director, controller, or his or her designee put throughout. So it just cleans that up and makes it a little clearer.
Anyone have any questions regarding this one? Someone care to move it? Thanks, Rich. Second, Bruce. Thank you. Any further comments? Discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Thank you. The mobile device policy.
Minor changes. I don't know, Jim, do you want to kind of highlight anything in particular?
Changes are on page 2. We just had to do some minor wording updates.
Not a lot of changes from the last version. Just a couple things to reflect current practices. And as I said, we also went to a 6-digit authentication on cell phones instead of 4 because that was recommended. And this is all being done as recommendations by cybersecurity reviews that we've had done and or our cybersecurity insurance carrier.
Any questions, comments, concerns? Someone care to move it? Thanks, Bruce. A second.
Second.
Thank you. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Thank you. The July finance report, Jim?
Yes.
So is in your is it committee report tab. This is for month 7, end of July. Consumption for the year is actually going in the wrong direction. It's down 1.2%. It was 0.7 the prior month, so we got to get that changed. Revenue is down also, and cash flow actually is going in the right direction. It's going up, went close to $100,000 up, but we're still year to date, we're still down about $500,000. So we're trying to minimize some of our expenses. I did discuss that in the executive summary. We're looking at some of our expenses going forward to the end of the year to see if we can postpone them, maybe move them into next year's budget, if possible.
Reoccurring expenses or just one-time expenses?
What's that?
Reoccurring expenses or just one-time expenses?
Usually one-time expenses, so major purchases and things like that.
How are we doing on the delinquent bills?
We're attacking that. However, keep in mind, we don't remember last year we had that LIWAP program going on. And so receivables are going up a little bit, whereas last year, I think we collected like $600,000, $700,000 during the year. And these are usually on lower income delinquent type of receivable. So we don't have that this year. And that's one reason why they're going up.
On the bright side, some of those apartment buildings that were in the news a few months ago are current. So apparently, as they try to sell their portfolio of properties across the country, they don't want to have any of them strangled with liabilities attached to them as they try to sell them. Apparently, that's my guess on it, at least. They're keeping them current, so that's good news.
Must be that threatening look you gave them.
Probably that was it, I'm sure. I'm sure. And
we did actually a detailed analysis, and we're going through that now of why our consumption has gone down, our revenue has gone down, but it's not so much the monthlies, it's quarterlies are actually going down. Keep in mind that even though it's still some businesses, but they're getting charged on a quarterly basis. So we're seeing some changes in businesses as well.
And just by way of background and reminder, when, 20 years ago, we used to estimate our revenue budget based on household average usage of right around 80,000 gallons a year. That's down now below 55,000 gallons a year and inching down every single year by a small amount. A lot of that is just due to people renovating their homes and putting in, more water efficient appliances, et cetera, et cetera. So we are seeing our, majority of our customer base is residential, and that's been slowly creeping down over time. And, we don't have any reason to believe that's going to change anytime soon.
Any questions for Jim? Any others?
Yeah, who's our biggest water customer right now?
Well, interesting you asked that, because I think attached to that is our top 20 for 23 compared to 2019. I wanted to provide that as we go into the budget season here. I believe that you have a copy of our top 20 monthlies and quarterlies for 2023 and monthlies and quarterlies. I went back 5 years just to show you how it's changing. If you go back to 2019, Oneida County Sewer was our largest user. 2023, they've dropped down to number 8. They went from 26 million cubic feet to now 3.6 million cubic feet. Pretty drastic.
Do you know why?
Yes.
They renovated the sewer plant, so they're now using anaerobic digestion as the, basically they're using bacteria to dissolve the solids, and they're relying a lot less on dilution. So it's a much more water efficient process.
Millions of dollars that they used to build those systems have had an effect on the water usage.
Taxpayers still paying it because the sewer tax went up.
What?
Yes, that's true.
Yeah, infrastructure.
It's just our revenue.
On the bright side, fairly recently, this is part of my report, but I'll jump ahead because I'm.
I always give the bleak note, so he gives the.
No, I'm just taking the cue here. Good segue. Ann Milgrano and I recently took a tour of the Wolfspeed plant with members of EDGE and also Oneida County Sewer, just to talk to the business folks up there about their relationship with the two utilities. And they have assured us that the production will continue to ramp up over time, even though they have instituted some water recycling, which is why their use is down now from where it was a year ago. It will be going back up over the next 18 to 24 months as they continue to expand into new lines of production. So they're our top user now, to answer your question, but we have every reason to believe they'll continue to be our top user, and their use will be growing pretty rapidly, I think, in the next 2 years.
Just to point out a couple of them, Matt's Brewing Company, back in 2019, they were 9 million cubic feet. Now they're 12 million. So we're making more beer, which is good.
We'll keep drinking more beer.
Yeah, that's it.
We'll do
We do a separate analysis. We're still trying to, we need a full year of the new hospital to kind of compare to them moving out of St. Luke's and St. E's and kind of figure that out. But we anticipate that they're probably going to use 2 to 3 million cubic feet less when it's all said and done.
So how did town of Westmoreland rate so good?
How did they what?
Town of Westmoreland?
That's a,
Bulk sale to
It's bulk sale. Yeah, it's like a master meter.
a bulk user.
So, oh,
We don't operate their piping system or bill their individual customers.
they weren't even a contender in the old time back because I don't see them in the prior year.
Right. 2019. I think part of that. Well, no, they're number one back in 2009.
19.
Yeah.
Yeah, they probably did some leak detection. Sorry to say, but if they have leaking pipes, it's going through the meter.
there yet. It's number
they
3.
brought down $1 million.
Yes,
Oh, okay.
they're number
Okay.
3.
The water transmission line to the towns and villages, that should increase on right.
Yeah, we won't see that for several years, but assuming all that goes as planned, yeah, we'll see a couple million gallons a day more usage.
And it seems like the prisons are also pretty much the same. If you go back 5 years, about 1 million cubic feet different. So but if you have any questions on these, pull me aside or email me, or I can surely give you more information on them.
Beginning of the year, I commented about cash flow, usage, and the historical reductions that we're seeing. They are continuing to come true for various reasons that we've talked about. The monthlies are much more significant than the quarterlies in the top 20. Top 20 is about 20,000, monthly is about 400,000. It's a significant problem that I believe needs to be reflected in our operating budget. We're going to be asking the board to consider some significant capital improvements, which are necessary for safety and safety and clarity of the water. And it's going to be very expensive, and it's going to have an impact on the rates. I would expect, as you normally do, you're going to come in with some sort of report before the end of the year and say, this is how we're going to adjust this year. And then we'll come back with a budget that sort of puts it all back. I'm not sure if that's what we should be doing. And I would hope that the budget that the board gets for next year reflects the issue that we're having with consumption. Revenue being up is only because we increase rates, and that is not the best way for the future. We've been doing it for a number of years because we have been very efficient in how we do the spending. And we've been committing large amounts of savings and not having to use them, which is a good thing. I'm not saying that's bad, but we're always basically dealing with the reduction in use by increasing rates. And I just think that has to be reflected better in the operating budget. I don't know what all that means. I think I can guess, but I just think we have to be a little more prudent operating in order to recognize what's going on until or unless it reverses.
I just do something. Ask them. You said that we raise rates and we're banking money?
No, the only money we bank is when there's something left over at the end of the year, 50,000, 100,000, that sort of thing.
So it's nothing of
No, it's
significant.
not significant.
Is there an average per year that you're banking?
No, we're usually, I mean, we're able to fund our reserve that is actually used for capital projects. It's called a maintenance reserve. We fund that. But there's not, cash flow wise, no, we're not,
That's not consistent.
no, it's little or
About
nothing.
it, and you just compare, expenses to income. There's always, we've been pretty successful in having a little balance. Hasn't been, that significant, but it's been enough to not have a negative, which is what you want to have. Our problem isn't that we have a little bit of money in the bank to pay for some capital. The capital that we pay for might be $700,000.
For a payment?
No, for cash.
Program.
Cash capital.
Vehicles,
From
water
that
meters,
account.
fire hydrants, stuff
Right.
like that.
But the capital that we
So that's
need
the loan you're
is
taking
the
out,
loan.
Tommy.
That's the loan. And the
That's the
loan
loan.
could have a 2, 3, 4, 5% impact
Well, it
on
depends how long it gets
rates.
spread over the useful life of the item.
30 years,
so-
still 30-year loans.
So what we did was we weaned ourselves off of bonding for certain categories of things that we buy. Take fire hydrants, for example, useful life of at least 75 years.
Without a blink.
So, but things like water meters, trucks, vehicles, less than 20 years.
Yeah.
So what we didn't want to do was be borrowing money with 20 or 30-year bonds for things that are done after 10 years and we're still paying for them 10 years later.
Yep.
So instead of funding all of that out of bonds, we set up capital cash reserves to have a separate capital cash budget or cash capital budget to buy those sort of pseudo capital items, but they're not normal operating expenses like just buying day-to-day things that we go through on a monthly basis. So we fund in the budget every year, and you'll see it coming up in our draft budget shortly, how the section of the budget that we set aside funds to build up a reserve, and then we pay for those things out of that reserve.
So you do a depreciation funding account? As the item depreciates, you put money away? Is
We're
that
not funding depreciation, unfortunately. We don't have that luxury right now.
The proposals that come to the board periodically, and we'll probably see one this year, are for major things, which are well beyond that. Those are the long-term tanks and pipes and all those.
We fund replacements
That's going.
when needed.
That's going to have an impact. The board will have to consider how much it will approve, and that will have a rate impact. But we'll also have a rate impact based on just operating. My concern is not the capital. We're going to have to do the capital. We have no choice.
Right.
Okay. But we have more choices related to as we operate. And I look at operations generally funded by our rates and the volume used. And as the volume is going down, our expenses aren't necessarily going down equivalently. And I'm not saying they should, but I think there should be some reflection between not selling as much and not spending as much. And I think that's staff responsibility to come to the board, and it's the board responsibility to consider it. Okay, I mean, the board approves how much we spend, and that's our job. I'm just asking that the staff consider the direction of the usage and what we know to be, and I don't like saying this because it has other impact, but I just don't want to keep raising the rates when the volume has been so significantly reduced.
Well, we're gonna have plenty of discussion on the budget
I would say.
as we work into it.
Because you and
I mean, it's, right. And yes, we argue all the time about how much we should put aside and that sort of thing.
Yeah.
And I'm very supportive of capital projects and will be, and obviously was very supportive of the cash capital and replacing the bonding for everyday expenses, which is something this board was very aggressive on for a number of years so that we could put money aside for what shouldn't be bonded. And we do that. And this board has a lot to be proud of as a result of that, because nobody else does that. Everybody, local government bonds for everything. Can't tell you how much local government has bonded for personnel over the years. We, try very much not to do that unless it has a relationship to a major capital project, which is going to be paid off in the next 30 years. But we've eliminated all of that and have done the right thing. However, unfortunately, we're not getting enough growth, and we're getting a lot of savings all through the systems. The brewery may be going up now, but they went down a lot. And now we saw what happened with sewer, and the hospital merger is going to result in millions of gallons impact. So we really need to, can't be equivalent, because we still have to maintain the pipes and the tanks and the reservoirs and everything else. Got to maintain them. They don't disappear just because, you're using less water. I just think we need to be more attentive to it.
Anything else, Jim?
No, I just wanted to point out what Bruce said. Consumption actually went up 1.5% in 21, went up 5.3% in 22, but went down a little over 3% in 23. So we went up, and now we're trending down a little.
Pandemic. Everybody went home.
They washed a lot.
They did.
So it's kind of been up, and now it's going down, but it's also been up as much as it's been down. But hopefully it will recover this year. But but it's also 1% and 2%. It's not significant. You know, if we were at 5 and 10%, that's a different ballgame.
So Bruce, another good segue. Thank you. Last Thursday at our weekly staff meeting, we discussed the budget timetable and budget submittals from departments. And all the staff that are in the room here today will recall that my strict instructions were these budgets have to be as tight as we can get them because we know with the capital program, we're going to probably be borrowing soon. It's going to result in debt service that we have to fit into the next budget. So we really need to keep operational requests as realistic and at the lowest level that we can. Having said that, the budget packets have all been submitted into Jim and Geraldine Powers of his department, and I will be meeting with all of our departments this week to go through those requests. We ask a lot of tough questions, and generally we make some modifications to those budgets. I'm going to say that I don't recall that we've never made modifications. We've changed almost every budget that's come before us in some fashion. I expect that's going to happen again. But as far as the timetable goes, our goal is to try to have a draft budget for board review in early September, right after Labor Day, for the first budget workshop. The Public Authorities Law requires that we have a budget and rate schedule passed no later than 60 days prior to the start of our next fiscal year. So that makes it October 30th, or I guess technically November 1st. So typically what we've done is a series of budget workshops. Once we know we have some consensus, we also are required to have a public rate hearing. And at that point, we typically advertise what we expect the rate change to look like. And then we'll have the rate hearing, and I'll go down and basically catch up with what we're doing. And then the board usually votes right before the end of October for next year's budget. So I think we'll be able to stay on that schedule pretty clearly. And as I said, we'll be reviewing those budgets this week. So Bruce, your words are taken to heart, I assure you. In the meantime, a couple other quick things I'll get through. All of you have seen an email that was generated by Ann Melgrano to me, but really done for Dan in engineering. I just wanted to let you all know because once in a while, one or two of you might reach out to me because you heard from a customer that there was cloudy water or no water. They want to know what's going on. And once in a while, and I certainly don't mind taking those requests from board members. Hey, what's happening over there? So we just figured we'd get this out to you in advance. This is planned maintenance. We're going to be working on a couple of valves. We know there's going to be an outage. This has already appeared on KTV. It's on their website. And homeowners will be notified individually as well. So I just provided that for your background knowledge in case anybody happens to mention anything to you or you hear about it through the grapevine. A couple other fast items. Last week, we had a new safety officer starting. The position was vacant for a little while. The last one left voluntarily due to some concerns that he was having. And so we've hired a gentleman named Timothy Beck, formerly of Bernie Bus. And with his addition last week coming on board, we are now at full staff. Every vacancy has been filled, which hasn't happened in a little while. So kudos to Sandra Dare, our HR director, for great recruitment job and making sure all these positions not only are filled but stay filled. Our turnover time when people leave has been very, very minimal lately. So that's very good news. On the issue of safety, we did have some training last week that we did for the first time last year, which I think had great results. We repeated it this year. It involves a physical therapist who has a company that specializes in body mechanics. And so what she did was spend 2 days at our maintenance yard training with the guys to proper technique on turning valves, on bending over, on all these things. And then we did some, this year we added a session for the office employees as far as posture and sitting. She'd be yelling at all of you right now for not facing me as I'm talking to you. But the results of that is that we have not had one reportable injury since prior to January of this year. We've now gone, knock on wood is right, we've gone now 9 months essentially without an injury. So our injury rate has come way down, and obviously our greatest goal is to make sure that all of our employees go home in one piece every day and don't get hurt and can enjoy the quality of life, when they're outside of this work area. And that training, I think, is paying off very well. And we just repeated it last week. Budgets I mentioned. Okay. So the last thing I'll just tell you is that with all this rain we've had, the upside is as of an hour ago, Hinckley Reservoir was about 3 inches from the top of the dam. However, Dan is a little bit concerned and panic stricken because we are doing still some repair work in and around the Prospect Dam, which is below Hinckley Dam. And this is all still from that Halloween storm. These are things that FEMA is reimbursing us for, but they're doing some boring up there now, and the extra water in the reservoir could be a concern for that work. So, what's usually a plus, maybe a drawback this time. I guess time will tell, but we'll see how it goes. That's all I have for now, other than we have some interesting items, or an interesting item for executive session, which we'll talk about that as a direct follow-up to our last capital improvement committee meeting.
Any questions for Pat? Any old business? Any new business? We need a motion to go into executive session to discuss potential litigation.
So moved.
And seconds, got them all over the place. All those in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Thank you.